My dad passed away just before I got into stunts, and it changed the course of my life massively. Oh man, I remember his moustache and how it felt when he used to kiss me goodnight. I remember they liked to get hugs all the time because he didn't have a lot of affection when he was a kid. I remember him being angry at us when we didn't do our best. You remember all those things, good or bad, and that's how you keep someone alive. You don't remember just that they die. Death it's inevitable, but it's also a very small part of someone's existence.
That's the Downward Doug, and this is the Yoga Life podcast. Hello there and welcome back if you've been away or just away from the podcast. My name is Kevin. This is the Yoga Life podcast, as you know. Ironically though, in this episode we don't actually talk much about yoga. We talk more about the life side of things. I don't know if you can hear, but there's a tractor outside my house mowing the lawn. Not my lawn, the communal lawn. So it's quite nice because you get that smell of freshly cut grass, which is there's nothing like that, man. But yeah, this episode I'm with the Downward Doug, and Doug is a natural speaker, probably because he's was a stuntman, and he's been around actors, and in his own right he is an actor. But this exemplifies why I don't do remote podcasts anymore. Because the chemistry that I have between me and Doug, you can't get that when you're talking to someone over a Skype call. And I was actually listening to his podcast, so shout out for his podcast, Getting Down with Doug. And it's so interesting. Okay, so he's a stuntman. He's worked on massive films, Dumbo, Game of Thrones, and he was doing a podcast. I think his first episode was with Paul Lowe, who's another stuntman. I was captivated. It was over an hour long, and just talking about Harry Potter, and there's something. It's amazing how it doesn't really matter what the content of the podcast is about too much, but it's the people that are on it. I find anyway. But yeah, check out his podcast, Getting Down with Doug, and there's a reason why I asked him to come on again, because he's able to talk about loads of stuff, and he's so open, which I really respect. And that's what I want to do with this podcast, because look, on Instagram I'm not going to get into debates with people. I'm not going to be very in depth about how I feel about things. I'm going to keep it quite high level, quite general, because I've had people before want to criticize me or critique me. I'm just not going to reply. It's not. Instagram is fantastic. It's a brilliant tool for communicating concisely, but it's not a community. It's not. You can't have a conversation on Instagram with God knows how many characters you can have, and you're not allowed. You can't use any tone. So the context is everything. It's absolutely everything. And that's why I started a podcast, because I just use Instagram to keep people updated, to build, to initiate relationships, but not to actually nurture relationships. I do that face to face. So it's the same. I got in trouble recently for a comment I made in a WhatsApp group. So for example, I'm on a few WhatsApp groups for covering teachers. And when I communicate on WhatsApp, I'm very to the point, because I'm trying to minimize the amount I use my phone. It's a tool. It's not my life. I don't want to be tied to my phone. Maybe you feel the same way. And so I'll give you an example. I'm in this WhatsApp group, and it's for a cover WhatsApp group. If you're a yoga teacher and you're looking to, you're going on holiday and you want to get your classes covered, you would say, is anyone available to cover my Friday night class at 6 p.m? And I have been in these WhatsApp groups where people are talking about loads of other things apart from actually covering classes. And my point that I made was, guys, can we just talk about covering classes, please? Because I keep getting notifications. As far as I'm aware, I mute my groups, but you still get the red notification. So my phone is blowing up, and I think it's like my mum or someone really important with an important message, and it's someone who's posting a picture of their dog or something on a WhatsApp group. It's I will say now, for example, hi, looking for cover for Friday 6 o'clock. Please only reply if you can, and the can will be in bold. Cover the class. And it makes me sound like, because people have said, what's wrong with you? Why are you being such a kind of like obnoxious, as it were? And I'm not being obnoxious. It's a tool. It's designed for quick communication, not for discussions. I don't want to have conversations with people over WhatsApp. I'd rather meet them. And it's the same with phone conversations. I don't like speaking on the phone. Really, not many people call me. If they do, it's normally my mum or my sister, or maybe my girlfriend. And when I'm on the phone with people, I keep it very, very brief. I'm just like, cool, what's up? When do you want to meet? I had this mate who would like call me sometimes and be like, hey, what's going on with you? Just wanted to chat. I'm like, I don't want to chat on the phone. To me, it's not the same. It's the same with a Skype call. Anyway, sorry. I just went off on one there, didn't I? But yes, Doug, podcasting, context. What stuff me and Doug talk about today is it was last week because this is a pre-recorded intro. But the stuff we talk about is kind of controversial, out of context. But it's important to understand that you can't be. Sometimes we want to be in groups, like I'm a vegan or I'm a socialist, or we want to identify with a certain party and then take moral high ground on whichever party or group we identify with. But humans are complex. Like sometimes I feel happy, positive. Sometimes I feel sad, negative. Sometimes I feel proud of myself. Sometimes I feel ashamed of myself. I am not my thoughts. Thoughts come and go. And stuff I thought last year, I don't think this year. And that's because I've had conversations with people who've shown me other ways of thinking, and I've taken that on board because I believe in constantly developing. So I hope that when you listen to this episode, you can listen to it in context. You can maybe relate to some of it, because ultimately I do this podcast for me. It's quite a selfish thing. I get the people on that I want to speak to. I talk about the things I want to talk about, and if it resonates with you, fantastic. That's brilliant, because when you're listening to this podcast, this is as if I'm sitting next to you talking to you. This is how I think, how I speak. There's no filter. There was at the start because I was self-conscious and I was speaking to people that I was maybe a little intimidated by, so I would put a filter on. But I'm trying to get rid of that filter and to start more open conversations. So yes, I hope you enjoy that, and because there are some people, I'm actually going to do a bit of a Russell Brand here, and I've received some love, so I'm going to give some love. I'm just going to read you a couple of reviews that I've been left, and I should give these people a shout out. So, first one is from Moya the Bee via Apple Podcasts in Ireland. 5 stars. I look forward to listening to every week. Relaxed, engaging conversations with interesting people where I always learn something and have a giggle as well. Thank you! ! So that's like they're shouting thank you, which is very nice. 5 stars, great content, thank you. That's running on sunshine in Australia. That's the other side of the world. That's down under. Yeah, I've got a lot of 65 5-star, well actually no, 67 5-star reviews now, and I've got 1 star. But you know what? I'm not going to read that, because I'm not. You can access it. Go onto my podcast and see what the 1-star review, what they said, and they're welcome to say that. But I'm trying to encourage positive vibes only, and I think that negative criticism is important, but not if it is criticizing my race or my gender. I can't help what gender or what race I am, or whatever gender or race you put me in, and more accurately. And if the criticism is based on things that I could change, then I would take it on board. But if it's just what I would regard as pure deranged hate, then I'm going to ignore that. Anyway, so let's finish with a positive one. A healthy dose of honesty, 5 stars. Kevin's podcast is as much an insightful listen as it is a meditative one. Ooh. Brilliantly honest and relatable content, all delivered in a lovely, relaxed, soothing tone. I'm sold. That's from A. Byrne via Apple Podcasts in Ireland. This is cool, man. Ireland, Argentina, no less. All right, I'll stop with the reviews, but yeah, man. US of A. Yeah. So listen, thank you so much for all the love, and here's some love for our sponsors. I received a little gift from the peeps at this week. I got an Equinox tee, some June Voyager trousers, Cobra bamboo tee, a Dawn Henley in solid light grey, and a V-neck tee in intense blue to go with my eyes. Not intense, my eyes are more like kind of grey. But you know, I like when last year when I was with Louis at just before Christmas, he gave me a pair of their Voyager trousers, black trousers that I wear all the time. This is slightly off script, but at the same time I bought some soft jeans that are half the price of what the Voyager trousers would be at a high street store. And already the soft jeans got holes in them. Basically, they look crap and I need to throw them away. And my wardrobe is full of clothes that I've, on the cheaper end of the scale, not made with the best materials, not sustainable materials, and now they need to be thrown away. So that is complete waste. So buy quality that's going to last and reduce your waste. And you can do that and save a few bob with my discount code. If you go to om.com/#TYLP. So that's OHMME.com/#TYLP, which stands for the Yoga Life Podcast. You can get 15% off your eco activewear. And just put in the promo code Kevin when you get to checkout. So, look, I have a script here. I could read it to you. But ultimately, it's men's clothing, it lasts, it looks good, and you get a nice discount. Boom, what else to say? Apart from go to om.com /#TYLP, put in the promo code Kevin for 15% off. Boom. If you need to up your yoga sequencing game or you need to amp up your home practice, then get yourself some 108 Asana Yoga sequencing cards by Yogaroo. These are beautifully made cards that have all the info you need on them. Your alignment cues, your levels guide, your anatomy coding, and your Sanskrit to English translations. They are designed by Ruth Delahunty of Yogaroo. She's a Dublin-based yoga teacher, so she knows what she's talking about. She's on the front line with us, doing her thing on her mat with the peeps. With this special promo code Kevin, you get 10% discount. All you got to do, pretty simple, is go to yogaroo.ie, pick out your deck of cards and then put in the promo code Kevin and you get yourself 10% off. Nice one. If you'd like to support the podcast directly, you can go to kevinboyleyoga.ie /support the Yoga Life podcast. When you do that, you'll then get priority for all tickets with retreats, with events, with workshops. Speaking of which, if you are around May 25th, you're in the Dublin area, come to my handstand workshop, Heels Overhead. Spaces are available. If you would like to find out more information or just inquire, you can go to kevinboyleyoga.ie /events retreats and fill in the tiny little form there so I know that you're interested, and I'll get in touch with you to get you booked up or answer any questions you may have. Okay, that's enough promos. Right, so I'm going to put on Doug to you now. And if you enjoy this podcast at any stage, you can share it on your Instagram stories. Tag me, tag Doug, hashtag the Yoga Life podcast or hashtag TYLP. And sharing is caring. So hope you enjoy this. Thanks. What's up, Doug?
Oh, well, Kev, we're back. We're in Dublin. And yeah, all is good. All is good. I had an interesting flight One, because there was loads of like teenagers on some holiday.
Bloody teenagers.
Yeah, I didn't mind. Like, I found it funny, but they couldn't decide where they wanted to sit. So they were kind of like reshuffling and like causing chaos on the plane. And I didn't mind. I was actually in the middle seat. I'll tell you one thing, Ryanair, very upright seats, almost inverted, so upright. Like, I couldn't believe it. I was like, this is not... Anyway, I'm not going to complain, but I was like, it's fine.
You know, when you put your seat back, do you look around first behind you and kind of give the person a little nod to say, is it okay if I just put my seat back that I'm entitled to do?
I want to say that I do because I'm a good yogi, but there's sometimes I'm like, I don't want them to say no. And I don't want to give them the option, you know? I'm like, this is my time. You know? Yeah. Luckily on Ryanair, you don't have that option.
Well, the seats don't go back
No,
at
the
all?
seats don't go back, man. There's a couple of things they've... they also don't have the seat pocket at the front. They're all about savings, you know. I realized it's really changed. Like, even when I was getting dressed to come to the airport today, like, I'm in fairly casual stuff. Yeah. And I remember actually when I was a kid dressing up to go to airports, and like, it's really changed. It's turned very much into like a bus, you know, a bus of the air. Well, they call the air buses, aren't they? The planes. Yeah,
I mean, I like to be comfortable, but have respect, for God's sake. You know, like people that are wearing their slippers on the... There's just, to me, that's... it's like when you see in Dublin, there's I don't know if this happens in London, but there's a certain demographic that like to wear pajamas. I mean, out on the street wearing pajamas. And I can understand it's cool, be relaxed or whatever, but then I'll see a picture of my granddad and he's not like, it's black and white picture and he's there wearing a suit, or his dad, my great grandfather, is wearing a suit, and I think there's although I don't wear suits anymore, there's something nice about taking a little bit of pride in what you look like.
Yeah, for sure.
Thoughts?
Yeah. I think just Liverpool's another popular one for that, isn't it? They wear. Do you know this?
No.
I don't know if that's where it actually maybe came from. Liverpool famous. If you go to Liverpool on a Friday or Saturday, girls are out mainly in their pajamas or some sort of velour tracksuit with their rollers in their hair, like ready for the night out. But it's kind of a fashion statement when they go out during the day. So whatever.
But you're looking well.
Well, thanks, man. This yoga lifestyle definitely agrees with me, man. Like, I'm definitely getting to... I was just telling you about my garden and how much I enjoy that.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm very much looking after the garden of my life at the moment too, I'm feeding my soul and my brain and my body. And certainly my stunt lifestyle, that doesn't happen. Like,
but you're fasting, aren't you?
I'm fasting, but
only, ironically,
intermittently, which gives you, which is kind of a nice segue into another thing, in that parameters give you freedom. So I have that window from 1 o'clock to 9 o'clock to eat. Okay. And within that time, I have freedom to eat. Mm-hmm. But the hours outside of that, I don't. Look, I'm not hard and fast on that, but I am, like, I try to stick to it. I mainly did it because, as we were talking about Brian, what's his name? Brian whatever, that was on Joe Rogan, the comedian.
Callan.
He was talking about psoriasis, which I also suffer from.
Do you?
Yeah. So, and he was saying...
Where do you get psoriasis?
Mainly on my face.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like, it's a real bugbear. Well, it was a bugbear.
What is... Because my girlfriend gets psoriasis on the back of her neck. Mm-hmm. And you may know this already, but I bought her some CBD balm.
Okay, interesting.
And she's had it all her life, and she said it's amazing the results it's had within a couple of days, mate.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. I might try that then too. Yeah. Like, I'm always up for like trying different stuff out. Acupuncture for some reason also helps some people, like straight out the bat. They're like, that solves it immediately. It doesn't come back. Yeah. So
acupuncture is... How the hell does that work?
I don't understand.
It's amazing. Because my dad is very. He used to smoke a lot. Mm-hmm. He's alive, but he used to smoke a lot, and he tried everything. And someone suggested acupuncture, and he is very skeptical guy, and he said it was the only thing that worked. He went to an acupuncturist, and then the acupuncturist said, when you leave this session, go outside, smoke a fag, and it'll be the last fag you ever smoke. And he didn't smoke since.
That is interesting.
My mind boggles. I don't...
I mean, two things about that. One is that why it works, I don't know. Two, is it important why we know it works? I don't think so either. I had this conversation with someone on set once, and he couldn't get it through. I couldn't get through to him. I was saying, look, if you're the one with the ailment, it doesn't matter if it's not scientifically proven. If it works, that's enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, keep going.
Yeah. So it was funny because so many of the guys were like, yeah, no, it's not scientifically proven that that actually works. I'm like, look, what I'm telling you is if you've tried everything else, if you've exhausted all your other options, why not give it a go? Like, it doesn't matter to you. Like, you don't care if it comes back with a study. You just want that thing to stop in your body. And that's how I feel about the psoriasis too.
And also, as well, we don't know, I mean, the placebo effect. I mean, I was talking, a naturopath. It's naturopath a few weeks ago. And I was doing a bit of research on the topic. And as soon as I Googled it, the first thing that came up from BBC News was there is no scientific evidence that naturopathy actually works. But if it works within the individual, that's the most important thing, because we don't know. The body is so much more complicated than we realize. And I mean, think about like CBD oil, for example. It's a plant. My girlfriend's put it rubbed it on her neck, and it's been better than any steroid cream she ever been given.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's important to ask yourself, why are we being told this? Who benefits from giving us this information?
Yeah, I think the steroid cream too, I'm also very nervous about, because that's the big thing that they actually have it in my bag here, but that's the thing they prescribe to you. But they also say don't use it more than 3 days. Be careful on your eyelids, because what you're doing is the psoriasis is a buildup of excess skin cells. So it's your body working too much. It's an abundance, which is a great analogy for why too much of a good thing can be a bad thing, So you've got too many skin cells. So the steroid cream strip it all the way back down to its base layer. But you've got to be careful on your eyelids, for instance, because your eyelids are so thin. So if you use it long-term on your eyelids, you can wear your eyelids all the way through.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, so they don't tell you that at the beginning, So I try to do my best not to use it all the time. But when there's a big flare-up, then I get onto it.
Yeah. I was chatting to this naturopath, and I was saying that I was prescribed steroids for what was supposed to be colitis. And
You'll have to enlighten me.
So colitis is... it's an inflammation of the large intestine, the colon area, which can cause ulcers within the lining, and essentially it's you have like chronic diarrhea all the time, and just
the fun times.
Yeah, the fun times.
But ripped.
Yeah,
it's absolutely ripped. Always silver lining, mate.
But when I was prescribed these steroids, I read the side effects. And I thought, I can't take this. And then when I went into my place of work with the steroids in my hands, unopened, I started chatting to the geezer opposite me, who used to sit opposite me. And he said that, he was, oh yeah, I used to be on them myself. I was like, oh, all right. And I said, and did it work for you? He goes, no, my body eventually built up a tolerance, and then I had to get my colon removed. Surgically removed. I said, fuck this. I'm not taking, this is a slippery slope. But yeah, plants. I was prescribed oil of oregano in America, they say, and within days I was
get out, huh?
Regular clockwork.
Well, it's interesting because everything we take is a derivative of some plant and medicine that we had. Anyway, we manufacture these things, but in the same way, the placebo effect only makes us release the hormones and the chemicals that we naturally do anyway. Yeah. When we take anti-inflammatories, it elicits something in our brain that then releases the things that bring inflammation down. So when we have all this ability to cure ourselves anyway. I forget who was talking about this quite extensively. It was someone on Joe Rogan, and they were talking about how your body has this knowledge anyway. You don't know how, but it's doing all. I mean, right now, as we're sitting here, there's a multitude of things that it's doing just to keep us alive that we have no idea about. So it's an incredible vehicle, and it's an incredible residence, and we should look after it. And sometimes I think if we're having to take too many drugs just to stay afloat, something's wrong at the core, that we need to address. But then sometimes I wonder if that's kind of the problem with medicine in general, is that when it came to natural selection, genes that allowed us to be kind of sickly, we would die off. And now we have all the medicine to keep us alive. So we're passing on these genes that maybe aren't beneficial to the race as a whole. I don't know. It sounds quite doom and gloom when I say it like that, but the medicines allow us to stay alive no matter what we're born with. Yeah. Pretty much now. We've eradicated almost Well, we have eradicated every major disease. It's incredible what medicine's done.
Yeah.
But it allows every type of gene to pass on too.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, you know, going back to the intermittent fasting and our body's ability to heal itself, I think that I practice intermittent fasting too, and my reason behind, I'm interested to see what you think of this. My rationale behind it is that this is the first time ever, this generation, our generation, where we can eat whenever we want, whatever we want, and we're constantly in a fed state. So my dad, for example, remember him saying to me when he moved to Dublin from Mayo, he was 16 years old and he starved. He had nothing to eat for days. And then he was saying how, I remember it so clearly because he was quite emotional telling me about it, and I then got emotional. This is when I was really young, and he said that he was in Dublin and he couldn't afford the price of a cup of tea. And then when he got money to get a cup of tea, he actually got a head rush from the caffeine.
wow.
He said he had to sit down. It was like real, because he was so hungry. And I thought, fucking hell, like, so he's experienced mild hunger, or sorry, severe hunger, but not starvation. His dad would have been even well, like, would have had even less. And then you would go back a few more generations, they were literally starving, literally. And you know, the famine, the Irish famine, and it makes you think that maybe we should experience starvation is obviously extreme, but we should experience hunger to have a chance for our bodies to be emptied, to repair. And I think that constantly putting your body under stress, always eating, is and a variety of foods, I don't know how beneficial that is. You know, talking about the ancestral diet, where do we need to be eating kiwis, strawberry, or maybe not strawberries,
especially where your bloodline's from, like where your ancestors in a place where these things were commonplace. You know, no, that is very interesting, and I think there's something to be said too for this overabundance in general. Like, you're right, we can eat all the time. It means we can be full. One, it's a lot of work for your body to digest things. You know, it's like you say, it's releasing. It is stressful for the body to be full. You know, if you're having to break stuff down, that's why you have to sleep if we've had a big meal. So I think there is some merit in depriving yourself, and in general in life, it's good to go without, to realize how little you actually need. Yeah. It's so funny you bring this up because I wanted to talk to you about a documentary I have been watching called The Architect of Peace. Okay. It's called On Yoga on Netflix.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah, mate.
Absolutely brilliant, right? Beautifully shot.
Oh yeah,
all of that, and there's so many quotes in that. Like, it's hard to keep. I need a notebook, you know. And shout out to Erica Bracken for putting me onto it. She was like, "You're gonna love this," and sure enough, I had to watch it. I can't watch the whole thing. I've got to watch it in segments so I can digest what each of those practitioners or gurus are saying. And one of the things is, it talks about all these different things that we hunger for in life. So our necessity to eat is an important one because it keeps us alive. Same with drinking. You know, same with reproducing. Fine. You know, these are inherent things in us. But then we add on to that all these other hungers. Hungers for wealth. Hungers for social status. Hungers for travel. And we just keep collecting these different hungers. And by feeding them, it doesn't get better. Just like when you eat a meal, it doesn't stop hunger. It just keeps it at bay for a while. But only after a while, you'll start to get hunger again. You'll need to feed that hunger. And we've already got these innate hungers, these desires that we need to fill just to stay alive. If we start adding all these other hungers on, we always feel like we're wanting. You know, we're missing something because we're so used to having it. And one of the guys in there was talking about how you need to start getting rid of the other hungers so that you can live a more simple life. Because that's all that happens, is the more we feed those desires, those fantasies, the more we want them. You know, we're in that cycle, just like we are with eating. I'm hungry, it gets bigger, I eat. Now it stops for a while, but it comes back. And that's what happens with life. And it was interesting listening to him talk about that, how in your life you've got to manage all those desires and get rid of the ones that don't help you. You know,
have you ever listened to Tim Ferriss talk about Marcus Aurelius and Stoicism?
I have that book in my bag right now.
No way.
Yeah, on meditations.
Yeah,
I've been listening to Philosophize This, and they mix up so well. And that's so weird that you brought that up, because it is. Stoicism is exactly talking about this point. You know, it's fantastic. Marcus Aurelius, I mean, I thought the guy was just a prelude to Gladiator. Turns out he was a real guy. And what a guy. But yeah, sorry.
That is interesting, because one of the fears that I have is it was financial, and that what would happen if one studio gave me the sack, and therefore half of my income goes away, or a third of my income, whatever the proportion is. What happens if anything happens? You know, like I have to support a child or whatever it may be, and then I start to think, I have to reassess, how much do I actually need? What could I survive on? Could I survive on rice, beans every day? Do I need to? And the great thing about my girlfriend is that I'm thinking, like, should I stop talking about personal stuff on podcast? But I'm not gonna. So,
okay.
And she's
I'm glad we got through that. I'm glad I was here for that.
I've thought about it and I've decided
it's cheaper than therapy.
It's a long process. It's a long process. But like, she's very straightforward. Like, you know, sometimes you can go out with someone, they want you to go hotels and posh restaurants and stuff like this. Anyway, simple living. There's a lot to be said for it.
Amen.
And to know that, to not be a prisoner to finances, but to understand, okay, I need X amount to live my life, everything else is a bonus. I like nice stuff, whether it be a nice cup of coffee or something from a nice shop, or a treat, but I'm not trapped by it. The same with clothing or a car, or whatever. I'd like to have a nice car, but I'm not trapped by it. But I think that a lot of people don't feel that way, and they feel like they got to, keep up with the Joneses.
Yeah. But it's you touched on that stoicism, and look, I'm no expert. I became fascinated by it a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
In this Philosophize This podcast, which does a great job breaking it down, talking about food and everything like that. They talk about the Buddha, who I forget his real name. Do you remember his real name?
No.
He's got like the best real name. It's like Siddhartha Gautman or something like that. That's not right, but it's something like that. And every time this guy says, I'm like, that's such a cool name. It's gutted he had to change it to Buddha. But Buddha, I think, just meant the woken one. But he left his palace. He was this rich son of, a great emperor, for lack of a better word. But he left all that behind, because he was like, I have everything. Why am I not happy? And he went through whatever truths it was on his journey into town. He saw someone that was tired, someone that was weak, someone that was hungry, someone was starving, someone that would die. And he realized, even if you surround yourself with possessions, those things are all coming for you. They're coming for your loved ones. They're coming for you. You cannot keep it away. That money's not going to do it. So have the money, but know that that's not going to do it. So anyway, he went on to this other lifestyle, and the people of the time, the ones that were really searching for enlightenment, believed that you shouldn't indulge. And indulge meant eating more than a grain of rice a day. And I've forgotten what their names were. Kind of like the Monday Babas in India, the guys that do all weird things. They'll sit only in lotus form. It was that same idea. And they thought him a glutton for eating like more than one meal a day.
Yeah.
And he found this enlightenment somewhere else. But then it touched on stoicism. The stoicism was, look, bad things are going to happen. The fact that a bad thing is not happening to you or your loved ones right now, you should rejoice, because the bad things are out there. And it's so interesting. They kept you on that even keel of going like, I love this description. It says, fate is a carriage, and you are like the dogs tied to the back of it.
Oh, wow.
You're going along for the ride, whether you want to or not. You have options. You can run along with it. You can look around, look at the beautiful scenery that fate is taking you towards. Or you can dig in your heels, but it's going to drag you, and it's not going to be comfortable. So it's up to you how you decide to go along with that fate.
In German, I believe it's called the Hintergedanke. It's the realization that way in the back of your mind or in your future, something dreadful is going to happen, and it's always possible. And that adds zest to life. That adds the fact that you should appreciate that we're able to sit and have a conversation, because we're all going to experience suffering,
Yeah.
and not to, because then when it comes, you're more ready for it. I mean, I think our relationship with death in the Western world is fucked up, to be honest. Like my granny died 2 months, oh no, it was about maybe 3 months ago now, and I find that the Irish tradition of having a wake and everyone being really sad and shocked that someone in their 90s has died. I understand it's tradition and that's culture and that's fair enough, but to me it's the wrong way of looking at death, because then we see it as something to be scared of. Whereas in some cultures they see it as a transcendence, that it's you're a soul having a human experience. And you when you die, something else happens. And to be honest with you, Doug, man, I've been thinking about this a little bit lately. I get quite lonely sometimes because I work on I'm on my own a lot. Even when I'm up here in the studio editing my podcast, I can be here for 5 hours on my own. And although I love what I'm doing, it's the lack of human interaction.
For sure.
Right?
With your,
Mate, I have Joe Rogan on in the background all the time because it's like I feel like someone is there.
There's some connection.
Someone's there. And what it's made me realize is that I used to be very much, I used to mock religion and think, I don't want to go to church on Easter. It's really stupid. And, it's like a cult. And I used to say that when I stopped going to church after teenage years. But now I realize that there is actually a place for religion or something like that to bring people together. If you walk past a church on Sunday afternoon and you see people chatting outside, how are you, Mary? How's it going? How's the dog or whatever? That's an actual community. And I think the mistake that we're making a little bit is we're thinking that these digital communities, I'm making a few points here, sorry Doug. Look. We're thinking that these digital communities are a replacement for actual communities,
with you.
Whereas they should be a conduit to create actual connection. So last week, this is my last point in this. I did.
It's your podcast. You do what you want, mate.
But you're right. But last week I had the live podcast with Adam Husler, and I was so overwhelmed, man. I was on the edge. I was like, I'm gonna have a fucking panic attack here, man, because I'm just a bit overwhelmed with sensation. People are looking at me. I want to make sure they're happy. He's sitting opposite me. I've got questions. I never looked at my notes once, and I thought it's that compared to looking at a screen or being on a forum, which is like a community in inverted commas. It's night and day.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Doug. Go ahead.
Right. Let me where do we start? Sorry about a dog. No. So, a couple of things. Mate, we are definitely cut from the same cloth. On the plane over here, I had to stop and think about something, and I knew you would ask me how I've been and everything. And I'll tell you, a big change from what's been going on from when I was last year to now is a meditation practice. Okay. And I knew it was important. I knew I should be doing it, but I started doing it proper regularly. There's a great app called 10% Happier, and I'd always listen to Sam Harris and Dan Harris, who are no relation, but ironically both have a podcast, app out to help you meditate. And I started doing it. Start with the 5 minutes, then the 10 minutes, 15, and I was like, man, this is good. I feel better in general. Like my general effect is good. But I had a question, why am I doing this? And like, what actually brought me to yoga, and what is it about yoga that I enjoy? And I realized I was terrified of death. And that was my big thing. And people used to ask me, why do you meditate? And I was like, because I want to practice dying. And it sounds horribly morbid. The point being, though, and this will touch on a few of your points. One, this idea that going to that wake and our relationship with the death is messed up, because if you go back far enough, although it may have been a lie, I don't know what the real truth is, but soldiers go into battle thinking that when they die in battle, that's the best way to die, and they would be very excited because it's changed the framing of dying. We live in a very different world now, and we're like, we should hang on for life we're so consumerist that we're like, we want to hang on to even this commodity that is life forever. We don't want to give up even that. And I was like, man, it fills me with anxiety, this thought of dying. And I think it is a Marcus Aurelius quote, which is, death is nothing to us. And once you die, you're dead. You don't know anyway. So you shouldn't worry about it. And you're not dead right now. That's the important thing. And they would, Epicurus would talk about meditating every morning about all the awful things that could happen in your day. You set yourself up for the worst possible day that could happen. So you're going to do this talk with Andrew Huxley. You're like, I fumble every word that I say. And I ask stupid questions. I insult people and I don't mean to. And I bumble and the audio equipment is wrong. And you meditate on what that would be like. And then at the end you go, and then what? You would still go home. You could have a lovely dinner. You wake up tomorrow, you go back to teaching. And that was their thing. You know, the Stoics were like, what's the worst that could happen? Life still goes on. And the very worst thing that happens is life doesn't go on. And then you're dead anyway. Okay. Which was, for me, a little bit down, it keeps you a little bit down the way of thinking. So I don't know if I was totally on board. But the meditation, I was very much like, okay, so when I die, I have to leave this body. And the Buddha quote was, I give you this boat to cross the river, but you must leave it behind on the other side and carry on your journey. And that changes things. You're like, okay. So for me, meditation was practicing leaving this body. To realize that I'm bigger than this physical form that I have. That even when I sit still, my body doesn't move, and my eyes are closed, and I have no visual stimulus, I still exist. And if I still exist then what happens when I die? And this is me practicing every day to die. So when it comes around and I have to leave this body, I go, oh, I've done this path, at least partly. Now I can go on to it. So it's funny that you've come up with this same idea of how we feel about transcending or death. And I'm doing my best to not be anxious about death because it is part of life. And I've got the same thing. Like when you go to a funeral, everyone's sad. You're like, look, be sad. But that sadness can be a celebration that they lived. My dad passed away just before I got into stunts. And it changed the course of my life massively. And it made me just readdress a few things. But while I was at his funeral, I was like, someone's death, in terms of percentage of their entire life, is so small. Them actually dying is a fraction of their entire life. So when you remember them, you don't remember that they died. You remembered, oh man, I remember his mustache and how it felt when he used to kiss me goodnight. I remember they liked to get hugs all the time because he didn't have a lot of affection when he was a kid. I remember him being angry at us when we didn't do our best. You remember all those things, good or bad. And that's how you keep someone alive. You don't remember just that they die. Death it's inevitable, but it's also a very small part of someone's existence.
I was going to ask you, or just mention there before you said that, that is one thing that really scares me, is this thought of my parents dying. And I'm wondering how, I'm trying to preempt how it will affect me, because, for example, my mother, well, it's same with both my parents, but my mother, you just see your parents get less and less mobile as they get older. And I'm very close to my parents, particularly my mother. And I wonder, how will I handle that, because it will happen, and that we avoid this conversation so much. So when you said it changed the course of your life, in what way?
It changed. At that time, I was actually working in investment banking, and I hated every day. I'd go to the office. The highlight of the day was getting a coffee at the machine. I was like, this is not living. I knew that, And when he died at home in his bed. And I thank whatever deity is out there that it happened like that. Very simple thing. He woke up. My mom asked him if he wants some tea. She went to make him tea, came back, and he was dead. And at first you're like, oh, how could this happen to me? How could my dad die? And then you think, look, your dad's definitely going to die. That's a given. There are a multitude of ways he could die. Some really horrendous, awful, violent ways. That's a gift that he died in his bed, retired in his holiday home that he had previously purchased not too long ago by the seaside, which was always his dream. And I think back to what it would have been like if he had died while he was working in the country he wasn't so fond of. And And I was like, man, I've got to stop moving. You know, I don't want to be that guy that isn't so lucky. So it changed the course of my life like that. It also put a lot of pressure on my fear of my mom dying, though, just like you're saying. You know, very close to my mom. She's also a chain smoker, though. And even with that, I think she's missed 2 or 3 days of work in her life. Like, she loves working, and she's strong, and she's one of the toughest people I know, and the most benevolent by far. But yeah, I prepare myself every day, and I don't like to think about her dying, although if I don't hear from her for a few days, I get concerned. But all I do now is I make sure I call her at least once a week. I realize my time with her is limited, so I embrace every single bit, you know. And this whole thing about being in the present moment, which sounds all woo. Whenever you hear teachers say it all the time, it sounds like bullshit, you know. And I try to explain to students, I know how this must sound. And the only way I could describe it was recently I was reading this Marcus Aurelius book, and I realized this is a great analogy for mindfulness. You read a book, you start reading, your mind starts wandering on something else. Your eyes still go across the page. You keep going through. You're 2 or 3 pages later, and you think, I have not taken in a single word. Who's this character? What's this about? How? I can't remember what happened on those 3 pages. Mindfulness is simply looking at each letter, noticing each letter in relationship to each word, noticing each word in relationship to the sentence to the context to the story. You're only cheating yourself by paging through the whole book. Anyone can do that. And you'll get to the end, and you'll be like, I don't know what happened. The advantage in a book is you can return back and you can reread it. You don't have that advantage in life. You don't get to go back and go, oh, what was that experience? You only have that experience right then. So now when I'm talking to my mom, I don't do other things. I don't fold my laundry. I talk to her. I listen to her. You know, we have such a rich history, me and my mom. I want to enjoy it. So that's the only thing I can tell you. It's nothing we do is going to make the painful things less painful. You know, pain is coming. It's how we deal with it and how we embrace it. You know, is it something we're going to avoid? No. But we can enjoy the times we have now. And when those things do come about, instead of being a massive shock, we can go like, this has now happened. And if you really, you know, if you want to go further, you can almost be relieved that now you don't have to worry about it anymore because the worst happened.
So do you see yourself, or do you have are you religious?
Hard to, that word has become so loaded now.
Yeah.
Do I believe in God? It's changing now. Like with all the information I'm getting now, do I believe in a deity? Yes, I believe in God. I grew up, my mom is agnostic at best. My dad was definitely atheist, and he was quite vocal about that. What was funny is one of the things he was most proud of was the fact that I was Christian. Like he thought that was amazing. It was like, you know, I've taken my own path, but he would challenge me on it all the time. He'd be like, you know, how can a God be all good and all powerful? You know, that's the classic question. You know, if the God's all good, why are the bad things in the world? If the God's all powerful, why are the bad things in the world? But I think the world's more complicated than we think. You know, I'm starting to think the deity is all of us, and it is inside of all of us, and in ourselves, our true nature is the best, which weirdly fits quite well with ancient philosophy. They thought the same. And again, that idea with meditation is that you've got all these other thoughts, these other voices in your head that are getting in the way of that true voice. And it's your responsibility to take that time out during the day to silence those other voices so you can check in with your true voice, which often is the softest. A little bit like society. There's a lot of loud people. They're not necessarily the ones you need to listen to. You know, the people that have something good to say don't need to shout, but you need to listen. And for me, that's kind of what the meditation aspect is.
You know what's so strange. I know what I picked up on when you said about your dad is that he didn't receive a lot of affection when he was younger, and therefore he was affectionate. I love my dad and stuff, but he didn't receive affection, and therefore he's not affectionate. It's funny how that goes, isn't it? Like, you know how I mean, it's not as in he's not physically affectionate. Or I remember actually when I stopped kissing my dad goodnight. I was probably like 11 years old, and I would kiss my mum, kiss my dad. Night, Dad, love you. And then when I was 11 or 12, or around that age, I just would wave.
Oh, brilliant!
And then you're like,
ta-ra, guys, two little pips.
Exactly. And it's funny how that I wonder like what. Yeah, maybe it's a generation thing, but maybe it's not. Like, some people have give their dad hugs and stuff like this, and but it's interesting, isn't it?
My dad actually kissed us through adults.
Really?
Yeah. Like he was big on it.
Yeah.
It is interesting to think about how they become. I was saying to someone how yesterday, you find it sometimes with celebrities. They've in a similar way, they worked hard their whole life. They've known what it's like to have nothing. So then they get everything. And then when they have the kids, they try to give the kids everything, which is kind of like Marcus Aurelius. Yeah. Same thing. Back then the emperors were adopted. They weren't your bloodline. Mm-hmm. That was the tradition. You would find someone who had all the virtues that would make for a great emperor, and then you would adopt them, and that's how you'd pass on, which is a much better way of doing it. Nepotism, like it's a gamble. Is your son going to be good? Maybe, maybe not. But he broke that chain and he gave it to Commodus, his son, who was a nightmare. He spent most of his time getting drunk, sleeping with whores. And against his better judgment, Marcus Aurelius gave the throne to him, and that was the beginning of the end of Rome, which is interesting, right? Yeah. This guy that was so clever in every other way. My point being that Marcus Aurelius knew what it was like to work for something, then not wanting for his child to go without, he gave him everything. Yeah. So then that son grew up with everything, and probably because of that, his son ended up getting nothing, and then the cycle continues. You're like. Yeah, I don't know.
It's very funny.
Maybe that's it. Maybe that's how we go on.
The circle of life, as Elton John said. Actually, they're making a new Lion King.
Live action, isn't it? Like kind of CG.
Kind of CG, yeah. But anyway, side point.
Side note, man.
Just if it's out, go and see it, folks. But I want to talk to you about speech, though, because you're a good speaker and you have your own podcast.
Well, thank you.
Do you want to plug it quickly, the podcast?
Yeah, Matt, sure. Yeah, Getting Down with Doug. It's inspired by my talks with Kevin Boyle, as it happens. The man actually helped me, so big shout out to my first ever sponsor, Kevin Boyle, Yoga Life. He told me where to get all the equipment. It's just great to have chats with people in general. So yeah, give it a listen. It's not just about stunts. It's about everything. It's basically whatever I want to talk about. All right. It's very, very selfish in that way, but have a listen.
I think I'm going to call this. That's great. I think I'm going to call this episode, episode 46, the one not about yoga.
Amazing. Good stuff.
There you go. So I wanted to talk to you about speaking, communicating, and you said something very interesting on the couch downstairs having our coffee, and that was, I hope I don't misquote you, but good art makes you feel something.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah,
is that right?
Yeah.
So let's unpack that, as they say. I'll give you some context. I did an episode recently. I haven't mentioned anything about this on any social media or anything like that. But I did I'll just say it. It was with Ryan Enrico. I think it was episode 43 or something. And he said something quite controversial. And it got a lot of eyeballs. And I actually prefaced it by saying, look, before I posted it, I said, look, this is stuff and I said it to him. I said it directly to him, which is a bit awkward. I said, I don't find your view tasteful or funny. That's kind of insulting almost, but I thought, I'll be straight up with you. I don't find it tasteful or funny, but you have a right to say it. And that's why podcasts are so important, because there's no agenda, it's open conversation, and you get all to hear different views. And if we want diversity, we have to accept that people are different. So then when I put it up, for the first time in my life, I've heard about this. Oh, that's the doorbell.
Oh, that's it, guys. That's the end. Thanks so much. Yeah.
So where were we for the doorbell disturbed us?
God, UPS guy trying to get on the podcast. Unbelievable. Everyone wants a piece now, Kev.
But so I experienced some backlash And part of me was thinking, should I mention this at all? Because I don't want to give the people any airtime or attention. And essentially, I'll tell you the theme of what they were saying. They were what they would call maybe social justice warriors, SJWs.
Yeah.
SJWs is the acronym, and they were calling me white trash, saying that I was facilitating a misogynist, a racist, and then and Russell Brand will at the start of his podcast read out all the good reviews he gets, and I've got Oh yeah, he does that. He goes, "Oh, here's a review from whatever," and I've got 65 5-star reviews, which
Mate,
is
I've looked at it.
Yeah,
it's very impressive.
Pretty good. This is my first, and they actually sent me a video of them leaving me a review. It was them scrolling down to they did it. They scrolled down, hit 1 star, and wrote, "The last thing we need is 2 white men talking about yoga. This is trash," and all this kind of stuff. And then another one of them has an account set up which is a parody to Ryan's account. So basically, you know, the effort people put into their Instagram account, they've done it, but to rubbish someone else. And I realized that, wow, this is it's made them feel something. Okay, yeah. I've delighted 65 people, it seems, and one of them has not been delighted, and it's made me think. Well, firstly, I'm not going to spend any time. I mean, literally, I haven't replied to any comment, any DM they've sent me. I've just completely ignored it like it's never happened. And I plan to keep doing that unless it becomes chronic and abusive. Then I'll just block them. But it's opened my eyes to a type of person I didn't know really existed, and thoughts stuck.
Well, I would say a couple of things. One, I've just in terms of it's something I didn't really do before, but in my yoga teaching practice, and I want to differentiate that from my actual practice thing. My teaching practice, if I see someone, and something you brought up in one of your other podcasts with Manning, Jacob Manning, you were talking about how sometimes you just look at someone and they just look like they hate you in class. And I know that some people just have that face, but some people you can just feel they're like, they hate this class. They're like, this is not what I wanted to come to, especially when you're covering. But firstly, I would say sometimes there's a lot of good in even the bad reviews. And I'm quite interested in talking to people that didn't like the class, because everyone's entitled to their opinion. And I just want to hear why. I want to hear if there's something of substance behind that. So if they hated the class and they're like, I didn't like it because you didn't give enough time or explanation on how to do the move or the transition, I can take that on board. If you dig a little deep and they said, I hated the class because of your voice, then there's less I can do about that. All right. And then I don't take it too seriously because I'm like, oh, whatever. Same with this. It's worth noting, is there something of importance that's getting to her? And is it worth her unpacking too what it is about your show that upset her so much?
Refer to her as they, please. I'm joking. I'm joking.
He did me.
So.
Yeah. So what I would say is, oh man, I had a good train of thought there. Hold on.
Sorry, mate.
No, it was great. Worth a gag.
Yeah.
I'm all for a gag. I'm all for a gag. Yeah. What is it that makes her so upset about what's happened? Because this was probably something underlying there. Like I was saying, offense cannot be given; it can only be taken. You know, it's up to you what importance you put in other people's words. You know,
Nice, yeah.
If a kid came up to me and said like, "You're a doo-doo head and I hate you," 1, he's probably correct. 2, you have to see things for where they come from. Like, am I going to put a lot of importance on what this child or this stranger that doesn't know me at all says about me? You know, I don't know that I will. You know, I'll try my best to find something of usefulness from it so that I can turn that negative into a positive. But you can't control how everyone takes things. But getting back to the fact that it made her feel something, yeah, this is what's good. It's stimulated conversation. Probably the most important conversation we need to have are going to divide people.
Yes, exactly.
Not in a bad way, but in a way that brings things out in people. It makes them rethink or question. Like a good movie. Hollywood movies love to tie things up at the end in a very neat bow. life isn't like that. It doesn't give us that advantage. You know,
Mm-hmm.
life's more complicated. And the really, truly great films don't tie it up for you. They leave it dangling there, and it's up to you to decide what you make of it. So I would say, for that said person, whoever it be, look for where it's coming from. Is it useful in any way, so you can extract some good out of it? And then 2, is it warranted?
Mm-hmm.
And then thirdly, for them, why is it upsetting you? What is it? I must say, I do have reservation with saying something like, what we don't need, or how did she say it? That
It's 2 white men.
2 white men telling us about yoga.
Mm.
I would venture a guess that she sees herself as progressive, and that in her progressive way of understanding the world, people shouldn't be judged on immutable facts, including race and gender. So it's crazy that then she believes that by belonging to the gender male and the race white, you suddenly have nothing to say because all white men must be exactly the same.
Exactly. It's so ironic.
Is that to say that then I shouldn't listen to her because all females have nothing good to say?
Yeah.
You can't just say that because the group you identify with now dictates who you are as a person. That does not sit well with me. And it's funny, after we had that chat we had here last time, and I was worried about a little blowback myself of things we were talking about. We were talking about identity, victimhood, identity politics, so on and so forth. On International Women's Day, we had a teacher's practice. And one of the women there, one of the fellow teachers, teaches at a prison. She's quite an interesting person. And she said she went to class and she was like, hey, I wonder, is there International Men's Day? And without me missing a beat, one of the inmates was like, every day is International Men's Day. And I was like, there's the problem right there. We seem to be under some illusion that men walk through this world untethered by any problems. Everything's just hunky-dory. We walk into every CEO position that we apply for because apparently that's how you get CEO positions. You don't work very hard for a lot of years. And nothing goes wrong for us. We can walk the streets late at night. No one attacks us. Like, it's this weird misnomer about the world that men just have it easy breezy and white men have it even easier. Are there advantages to being white? For sure. Are there advantages to being male? For sure. Are there disadvantages? I think you'd be surprised to hear, yes. You know, the facts on men die much younger than females on average. We're more likely to be homeless. We're more likely to be mentally ill. We're more likely to commit suicide. Like, what is this world? If there's this patriarchy at work and that all men are protected and everything's good, why are all these bad things happening to men? Females are outperforming men from preschool all the way through high school and university. How is this a man's world? You know, and then on top of that, we've been told we're also a piece of shit by Gillette. Yeah, cheers, thanks, guys. It's a wind up, you know. And if you for a minute think that people won't use this rhetoric as a way to secure power for themselves, you're mistaken. They 100% will. And I'm not saying we should protect men over females. No, I'm just saying we should protect people. Like, we should start seeing people as people. You know, there's no room for saying that these groups should get precedence. You know, we got to a stage now, and we were talking about before, we live in a pretty good time in the world. Like, there's not much raping and pillaging going on outside. You're pretty secure every day you wake up that someone's not going to come stab you in your bed. You know, someone's not going to burn down your village. Like, we live in a pretty good time. It's never been this good.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, so let's go with this trajectory.
Yeah.
Is it perfect? And I don't think that for a second. You know, does racism exist? Does sexism exist? For sure. But let's deal with the real versions of that. And let's not start pitting each other against each other by going, right, we need to look after this minority group or this majority group. Let's just look after everyone. Can we see that the fact that we're more alike than we are different? And that's the problem I'm getting at the moment. We're trying to somehow, our way of trying to fix the balance of the past is by making it imbalanced now in the other way, which is just the same thing. It's not progress. We're doing the same thing. We're looking at people's immutable facts and then trying to judge them based on that. And I'm not a fan of that.
Yeah, as soon as the word, as you said, white male was brought up, I had to, it discredited the criticism for me, and it made it not worth even addressing. And I plan to do that going forward. If it is, they're criticising the fact that I can't change, then I just plan to ignore it, because how much time is so important,
so precious, yeah.
and that I can't be given that attention. But no, in fact, there's a book called Factfulness, I believe is the name, and it has multiple charts showing how every single bad thing in the world, like, you know, child mortality, murder rates all over the world, everything's decreasing.
Yeah.
So we're living the best time ever, but because we are fed so much media all the time now, we think that things are worse.
I mean, we're in Ireland right now. We talk about terrorism. Terrorism is at all-time low. Like during IRA times, it was far worse. You know, far, far worse. But somehow, 24-hour media makes you go like, oh my God, we are in danger all the time. And that's not healthy. You know, and they've got a lot to answer for. And I think that's why something like fake news, the term, was so easily adopted. Because I think we're all feeling in a bit way. What they were telling us wasn't necessarily linking up with what we're seeing outside. You know, I think they have a responsibility to get our trust back, the mainstream media.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about podcasting, is it's unfiltered. There's no middleman. Where do you want to take your podcast? I don't mean geographically, but I mean which direction? What's the vision?
Look, I'll tell you where it stems from. So now that I'm teaching yoga more than I'm doing stunts currently, the big thing I miss is the interaction with those type of people. Like the stunt guys are amazing. I've always loved the stunt family, and that's one of my favorite things about being on set, is looking at the call sheet before you go in and going like, oh my God, yeah, you know, Dan's in, Slaughter's in, O'Daly's in, oh, we're going to have such a good day, you know, because it was very much the people we were around. And now I've stepped away from it. Like you're saying, being a yoga teacher can be quite a isolating or lonely place. You know, when I practice, I often practice alone. Even if you're in a room with others, you're practicing alone.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you're practicing within yourself, or your lesson planning. And I miss that interaction with people. So I guess I just want to chat to people. I think everyone's got a story. Everyone's interesting, and I want to get it out of them. You know, whereas Joe Rogan has access to famous people, I get access to my people, which I find it just as interesting. And I want to bring that out, and I want to have a conversation, and I want to enjoy it. So I am doing something quite interesting, though, starting next week. Joe Rogan has this fight companion.
Yeah.
So we're going to do a Game of Thrones companion where we sit down with a couple of guys that worked on the show or relate to the show in some way.
Oh.
Watch the show and then like start like while we're going through, and we're like, oh my God, you remember that night? Oh, it was so cold. And just on the left, you can't see, but off that screen is this diesel engine that just kept making noise and it kept shutting down. So we're going to give you kind of the behind the scenes stuff of what happened.
Oh,
so,
mate, that sounds great.
Yeah, I thought it would be a fun way to introduce it.
Audio format though, not video.
Audio. I think I might do like maybe a visual thing, like an Instagram Live or Facebook Live at the time, kind of like how Rogan does it, and just set it out. But yeah, it's very much the audio, and then people can watch along with us. And then it's almost like having a director's cut, but you just got 3 idiots cut. So, you know, if you want to hear our musings on it, then check in. But yeah, it's just a fun way to be creative, like you're doing here. You're creating content, you know, and I guess for the most part, most jobs aren't creative. And I think we are naturally quite creative.
Oh, mate, completely.
And that's what it draws me into the yoga teaching, is like you get to make up, there's a set amount of moves, there's a different way to teach them. And you get to bring your little framing in and go like, but think about this, and maybe we could put these things together. They don't normally go together, but let's see what it's like, and make up this dance that we do together. And maybe we learn a little something from it afterwards. You know, I've been saying in my classes, as you're aware, like I like my hats. Like I collect these hats. You were talking about your dad being very formal. Like I like that formalness that comes with it. Neo did it very well. Controversially, Michael Jackson did it pretty well too. Which we should talk about that.
Should we?
We should talk about that.
Okay, go on.
All right, hold on. Let me finish my little hat analogy. Okay. So, yeah, I'm taking over here, Kev.
Yeah,
the coffee's kicked in. Right, yeah, you sit back, you listen, and you enjoy this. Come along for the ride, people. Here we go. Choo choo. Right, here comes the train. The hats that I really got into, there's one, unfortunately I've read all these things, so I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but a borsaleo. It's a type of hat. Handmade, brushed 100 ways, or hand brushed 100 times in each direction. Okay? Beautiful hat. It comes with a tube, a little bit like this one here. This one's from Bates of London. And it comes with a tube, and you can fold the hat up, just like this one. You can roll it into like this cylinder, and you pass it through the cylinder. You can keep it in there for up to like a day. It comes out the other side and rolls back into its shape.
Good for travel.
Exactly. And that was called the Borsaleo test. And then it made me think, that's what we're doing in yoga. You're putting yourself into all these awkward positions that aren't necessarily comfortable, and you have to find your happy place. You have to find control. You have to find what's going on in your body.
Mm-hmm.
And you come out the other side, and you should be able to pop right back in to your true nature.
Yeah.
Just like with life, you go through all these different things that maybe put a lot of pressure on you. And the idea is not to fold, not to change, not to react, not to shout at someone, not to be that angry person, not to be that sad person, but just to try find some equanimity throughout your life.
Mm.
Can you pass through these different things and come out unchanged on the other side? Because that divine in you stays the same throughout. And if you can stay within that parameter of the divine and not let the external chatter and the pressure get to you, then you're cool as a cucumber. You come out the other side unchanged. That's my Borsaleo hat analogy.
So being able to adapt.
Well, more
a bit like Michael Jackson did.
Wow.
See what I...
Yeah, the segue. Lovely segue.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you brought that up, Kev.
I'm not doing it in a jesting way, obviously, because this could be a serious topic.
No, look.
I mean, it is
There's a couple of different
Well,
things.
first, can I just say one thing about Michael Jackson first? I can't even talk about Michael Jackson. But this is good, because when I was a kid, I idolized him.
Our age.
Did all the dancing. I had all these videos, VHS. I had, I remember the first CD I ever seen. I went to my mate, Stephen Ishmael. Shout out to Stephen Ishmael, who's listening. I went to Stephen Ishmael's house, and he...
your microphone's just got pulled to the side.
Yeah.
See, now that I do podcasts, I know the pain of people not talking to the mic. The mic, you know?
Yeah.
And if you've got an animated guest, they're like, yeah, and then I did this, and I came over here, and you're like, fuck, just talking to the mic.
Yeah. So I went to Stephen Ishmael's house. It was his 8th birthday, I think. And I go, put on some Michael Jackson. He took a CD out. I was like, what is this?
Amazing.
Like, the rainbow kind of reflection.
Yeah.
I thought, how does this carry music compared to a cassette? So Michael Jackson had a massive impact on me growing up. And I think was very, very talented. And he made brilliant music.
Yeah. No one will doubt that he's a genius.
So that's the art.
Mm-hmm.
The art was fantastic. And he was a genius. But let's talk about the artist. Doug, go.
Great, because that's one of the concepts. That's what I found so interesting about that Finding Neverland documentary coming out. It did bring that up. Can you separate the art from the artist? Okay, an important thing. So let's say worst case scenario, he did all those things he's been accused of. Okay, I'm not saying he did it or didn't at this stage. Let's just say he did. Should we not listen to his music? So if someone bad creates something good that then can be taken for good, should we not accept it? In the same way, if a drug dealer makes a lot of money and he pumps a lot of that money into charity, is that money marred? And can that money do any good? So, like, I'm not providing any answers here, by the way. So if you're listening up, I'm not. I'm just saying these pose certain questions.
Yeah, it's like R. Kelly. He was...
Exactly.
They were going to take his music off Spotify. And I think Kendrick Lamar said, if you take his off, I'm going off as well. So... he pulled a bit of a power move, Kendrick Lamar did. So they didn't take R. Kelly off, I believe. Maybe they have now, but they took him off iTunes. And I was chatting to my girlfriend about this, and she was saying that she doesn't think well, we have different opinions, basically, put it that way. And I think that...
Yeah, but Kev, you're just a white man, so...
I know. I mean, all of the allegations are absolutely terrible, and it is awful. But can you separate the two, man? The point you made there about the drug dealer giving the money to charity, that's...
Yeah, you see, it messes you up, right? Here's another one. These are allegations, R. Kelly and Michael Jackson. I'm not sure, I haven't kept up with the R. Kelly one, so at this stage in my head, it's still allegations, so that's where I'm talking from. That's the point I'm talking from. So BBC did take some of Michael Jackson's music off after that, okay? How many movies by Weinstein did iTunes take off? And that wasn't an allegation. That was proven, caught. Nothing happens. An allegation by two people who, if we look into them enough, or just a little bit, money seems to be very much at the heart of what they're doing here. The filmmaker, I don't want to say documentary maker, because I assume documentary assumes that you're looking for the truth. Finding Neverland. No new evidence. No one interviewed other than the two people that are making the accusation and their families. That's a real half-art way to try to find the truth. And I had real problems with that. You know, if you're going to make an allegation, especially to someone who's dead, who can't even reply, and you want to then go, by the way, we won't talk to anyone else. We won't even find people to corroborate this story. We will just listen to these two people, because apparently now, the more heinous your accusation, the more truthful it must be. That is a dangerous precedent to set. And we only have to look to Jussie Smollett to realize, look, there is a lot of currency in being a victim at the moment. A guy that is a Hollywood star decides that it's better for him to be a victim because that carries more weight. You know, Ben Shapiro was talking recently about how the welfare rate has shot up since we've started funding single motherhood. People aren't idiots. People quickly work out, and you have to look at kids to realize this. They work out what is beneficial, and they will do what's beneficial in their life. We've started really perpetuating the victim stereotype and go, the more the victim you are, the better life will be for you. The more people look up to you, the less they'll question you. Jussie Smollett thought, I'm going to go with all the stereotypes. Like, I don't want it just to be a homophobic attack. I don't want it just to be racial. What if I merge the two together in this synergy? You know, I'm going to make this amazing hate crime where it's both homophobic and racist. And then had the audacity, after taking a deal, being proven, well, not proven guilty, but them saying pretty much, look, we think you did this, so we need that $10,000 bail. And he came out and had the audacity to say how he was proven innocent. Like, I didn't know much about him in terms of acting. After that performance, I was like, this guy, come on. Look at that with a straight face, knowing full well the prosecution are about to walk out and tell everyone that, in fact, they didn't exonerate him. But this world in which accusation is more important than proof is a dangerous precedent. It's not obvious that life exists like this. We've done so well to get to a place where it's presumption of innocence over guilt. And we should really hold on to that, because the ramifications are massive, if not. Do we just keep accusing people until something sticks?
Well, Doug, it's funny you say this, because someone went to the Adam Husler thing, as you know, the training and podcast, and we talked about physical assist and how that he doesn't physically assist people. He doesn't, basically
famously doesn't, right?
Yeah, he doesn't. And made the point that if you had one accusation, just one, you're done. Forget it. You're over. It's that's Kevin Boyle, the whatever, the geezer who's creepy or whatever.
A little bit touchy,
yeah. And then that perpetuates someone else will say
Hansy Boyle.
Hansy Boyle sounds like a kind of western. But what I'm getting at is that, like, it's not worth it, man, because that could, and it's a shame, but I think that I'm making now the conscious decision to stay away from that, or to do it in a way where it's very, very unintrusive.
It's tough. I mean, I was just thinking, as you said that, though, if someone's going to lie, it didn't matter what the reality was. So I think if someone was going to accuse you of something, even if you didn't do any assists, they might still accuse you.
Yeah, true. I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's actually, I want to go back to something. This is a slightly different point,
sure.
but
Let's go.
I'm interested in your opinion on this. Right. It's people, the way we treat criminals now, and this is anything to do with physically assisting people, but going back to the Michael Jackson thing, yes, he was strange. Yes, he had, I would say, inappropriate relationships with children, right? I mean,
all in agreement.
If it was my son, I'd be like, no, there's no way you can go at Michael Jackson for the weekend.
Sure.
The fuck?
Still agreed.
You're my son. You're not going with anyone I don't know. I wouldn't even... Actually, Doug, to be honest with me, I this is not a popular thing to say, but I don't even think I'd have a babysitter. I wouldn't. And if I did, and this is probably a sexy thing to say, but I think I'm like, oh man, I don't know how to say this. But
I get what you're coming from.
I'd be uncomfortable.
A male babysitter.
To me, it's not like, unless it was my. I don't know, man. It's fishy. Like, but my point is that the way we treat criminals now, I wonder if in like 100 years we'll see
Go on, mate. Give it another crack.
Well, I wonder if we'll
Pedophilia.
Pedophilia. Is that the word,
shit.
yeah?
Now that I say it, sounds weird.
Does sound weird.
Yeah.
But
You only ever hear like pedophile or pedophilic.
I think the phenomenon is pedophilia.
Yeah. Well,
Just go with that. Cool. I wonder if in 100 years we'll see that as like an illness as opposed to something that should be punished.
But hang on. I think we'd agree now that it's an illness, no? Like it
yeah, but I think
as far as I'm concerned, it is.
It is. I think
you're a victim to yourself
like,
too.
My instinct, and I'm kind of slightly ashamed to say this, but if I had a child and someone interfered with them, I would kill. I don't know if I'd kill, but I would actually want them dead.
Sure.
And I'm not proud to say that, but it's almost like an instinctive thing. And this is my point. You shouldn't be around. You shouldn't exist.
This is my point. Is that's exactly why we don't leave the judgment of others to the people that have been affected by it. Yeah. That's why we have to believe in something that's bigger, something called justice. That's the same idea with presumption of innocence, is we cannot leave it to our gut reaction because that's how we used to stone each other back in the day. We don't want that life anymore. And I used to have this argument quite often with parents, and I'd be at dinner parties, and they would say, yeah, we should just castrate them, we should murder them. You're like, hang on. Like, is that what's best for society, or is that best for you? That's what you feel like is going to bring you justice. Is that going to help what's happened to your kid? No. What's going to help happen to you, what happened to your kid, is for it not to happen again.
Yeah.
So how do we fix it? How do we stop this sickness? A little bit like we have this same problem, this same approach to criminality, like you're saying. There was a guy, I believe it was Texas, who famously went up to the bell tower with a sniper rifle and started taking people out. They killed him. He had left a note saying, please, when you do the autopsy, check my brain because something is not right.
Oh, wow.
He had been to a neurologist before. They found a small tumor on his amygdala.
Oh.
They cut it out. That grew back. And he changed from a very normal person to then someone who was shooting up a whole lot of people. His drive has changed completely. The point being, if he had shot at those people, we managed to arrest him, apprehend him, and a doctor came in and said, good news, guys, we found the problem. It's this tumor. We'll cut it out. We'll put him back into society tomorrow. No one would be like, that's okay. Because we like to think that, no, when something bad happens, that person should be punished. We always feel like it's a choice. The reality is, when there's sicknesses like this, I don't think it is a choice. And if you're looking for this thing not to happen again, as opposed to some brutality of force to make you feel better about the situation, there's a difference there. You know, if there was a drug we could give people that suffer from pedophilia to not do it anymore, would that be enough for most people? Probably not. Should those people be excluded from society? I think for the good of everyone else, yeah. How much is free will? I don't know about the subject enough to say with any confidence. But what I'm saying is, if it is a compulsion, should we be also seeing that person as a victim to themselves? Yeah, I don't know. I would imagine, like most addictions, the people aren't happy with what they're doing.
Yeah.
You know, they are victims to themselves. And again, I know that's not a popular thing to say. And every dinner party I've been to, the parents have all gone like, you don't know what it's like until you've had a kid. And I was like, yeah, but that's the point. Not only people with kids should be deciding what should happen to them. The same reason why people say, like, oh, when it comes to abortion, there shouldn't be men in the conversation. No, because there's an ethical thing here. You know, we should be able to make these decisions on a broad scale as humans, not as just victims of whatever the crime. Otherwise, every judge that sits on a court case would have to have the thing happen to him, which makes murder trials very hard because the judge would have to have been murdered. Like, we reserve the right to have thoughts on things even if they've not happened to us because we have this thing called empathy.
But I think people we forget that human beings are complex. And if you're at a dinner party and you, for example, make the case that you did, or you, not necessarily the case, but you give a point of view that some people like to be holier than thou and say, no, paedophiles should be killed or punished straight away. Whereas a lot of people that are abusers were abused themselves, and they're tortured souls. And okay, take it on a case-by-case basis. You may have someone who's just, for want of a better word, evil, and may have no, I know it's not a great word to use, but may have no remorse at all.
No, for sure. And those people exist. But the point is, those people make up of less than 1% of the population.
Yes. Oh yeah.
That's
absolutely.
it.
Yeah.
You know, psychopaths, sociopaths, less than 1% of the population. So let's exclude that from the conversation. Let's say, what about the rest now?
The other 99%. Yeah. It's because it's something that, as you said, there's an interesting thread on Reddit, a subreddit called Unpopular Opinion, and it's people that post up things that you wouldn't say at a dinner party.
Yeah.
And I think that those conversations are so important to have because people want to be in a camp to be like, oh, this is my opinion. I'm with these lot. I want to identify as this type of person instead of actually having discussion. Yeah. And I think that in order for us to practice compassion and to understand other people, it's important to find out why they do certain behaviors.
For sure.
Not just what you do is wrong. And that's what I'm saying about battling with my own mind is that for example, I talk with my girlfriend about this because I have stopped practicing jiu-jitsu or any martial arts at all, but I do have kind of fantasies in my head that one day I'm out of my girl.
Oh man!
Do you ever get this?
Yeah, oh my god! I always think, like, what is wrong with you? Why? I know exactly what you're
say.
going. Yes.
Let me go. Let me go anyway.
Get out of my head.
So I'm like, because the other day my girlfriend was saying how like, what if that window isn't closed and we should lock the window really instead of just closing it? And I said, that'd be all right. If someone comes in, a burglar, I'll take care of it. And she's like, what do you mean? She goes, well, I said, if someone came in my house that I live with my girlfriend, I would choke them. I would like do some jiu-jitsu on them. Okay, that's my fantasy, that like I would jump out of bed and I'd wrestle him to the ground or whoever they are, and I'd be able to like safely, but with control, subdue them, and then maybe call for reinforcements like the police, and that makes me feel kind of more like a man. Like I can physically protect my girlfriend, but that isn't something that I would share. I mean, obviously, I'm sharing it out
with everyone that can ever listen. Yeah, brilliant.
I can just have
rethink the strategy, but
I do have those things in my head that like I want to feel needed by my girlfriend and by people around me. And one way I feel needed is, what can I offer that my girlfriend can't? And that's physical strength. I mean, it's not, relatively speaking. I mean, I'm not a necessarily strong guy, but compared to her, and I think then I can protect her, so she needs me and she'll love me more.
Yeah, no, I find it interesting. Like, my fantasy is similar. Sometimes I'll be walking in London, I'll be like, man, if someone grabbed this bag off me, in a world of pain, I'm going to run you down because I'm fit, and I'm going to tackle you, I'm going to do all manner. And I'm like, what? Why have I just made up a crime in my head just so that I can hit someone? Like, I need to address this. And that's the same thing, like, meditation is that same thing of taking time out to question those thoughts, to know that you're not a victim to just your thoughts. So a thought arises, you notice that thought and you think, that's interesting. Why did I think that? I tell you, one way you don't address it is by just letting it ride, by not questioning it, and that's the same with conversations. You know, if we just subdue it and we're like, never mind, explore it. Like, and the same with conversations. Find someone you disagree with, have a chat with them, find out where they're coming from. Try understand them. Like I said, I think we're more alike than we are different. You know, and this whole problem of going like, they so-and-so, they're like this, they're just white men, what do they know? That's not helping. Like, try understand them, try understand where they're coming from. So it's the same, how we treat ourselves is so often how we treat others. So can we do that to our own thoughts as they come in, instead of just subduing them, go, don't feel like that. I feel angry. Okay, why do you feel angry? Because I feel snubbed by someone. Why does that upset you? Because I feel like looking good in front of people is so important. Why? Because you're vain. Okay. Because I've tied up my identity with how I look in front of people. All right, there's something more there. Yeah. You know, I can get to the root cause of this thing. Yeah. But it's funny that I wonder how many male listeners would be on here that have that same fantasy. I know my brother certainly had it. Like, we talk about it and we're like, yeah, you get them, you know, and you're like, yeah, that's weird. Like, yeah. I think, like someone said, it's the fact that we live in such a safe time where we don't have to worry about dying. No. That we can, you know, I guess we just got weird.
Well, mate, we say like because the sun's out now, me and Doug are gonna go out and train in the park. I believe we are.
Yeah.
And when I go to the park and I'm doing like my pull-ups and stuff, I imagine like that I'm doing it to save my life.
Man, this imagination, this is great.
If I'm doing sprints, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna imagine that I'm running after some bloke who's like nicked my girlfriend's bag or something, and if I'm running, or I'm running away from someone to survive, and because life can be so fucking dull.
Yeah, because why? Because the threat of death is pretty far away now. We used to be fit because we had to hunt. We used to be strong because we had to climb. Now you have to, again, parameters give you freedom. So now you've got to make that time to be disciplined, to train. And, whether it's a yoga practice or a martial arts practice, it's just that discipline of going somewhere and doing something, finding something that's bigger than yourself. Mm-hmm. Because it's a very lonely existence to believe you're the most important thing and you want to serve just you. Even if you are doing something that's helping your health, like find something bigger, find a goal, go for that goal. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Speaking of which, should we go out and
let's hit it, man. Yeah, good time with the sun's out.
Guns out.
They're always out, mate. Locked and ready.
So yeah, that's it. We're done, man.
Yeah, Kev, thanks again, man. Always super fun to chat to you. Interesting topics all around. Oh, I did want to say this. In the same way, I'm not identified with my thoughts. I reserve the right to change my mind about any of these things at any time.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the problem. People get caught up and they're like, oh, you said this. Yeah, all right. I may look into something a bit more and find that that's not correct. Mm-hmm. As things stands, that's how I feel. And if you can have a discussion about thoughts between each other, you can hash them out and maybe change your mind about something. Mm-hmm. Don't be tied into just the way you think. That's how we become ideologues and dogmatic. I think that's part of the problem. People don't want to have the conversation because they don't want to challenge their ideas because they've identified themselves with the ideas. Don't be identified with your ideas. Be identified with the true you, the divine you inside.
Boom.
I'm out.
Mate, that was amazing. Oh my God. Fucking hell, that was unbelievable.
All right.
Mate, you've just set the bar.
Good chat, man. It's so funny.
Wowza. We went deep. I know. Pretty eye-opening stuff. That was a lot of fun and kind of edgy stuff. But, man, they're the thoughts we have sometimes. And we should be free to think and to speak. So I hope you listened with an open mind, and I would love to hear what you think and what you thought of that episode and what myself and Doug had to say. I love that geezer. Okay, I'll leave you with our sponsor, Apparel. Yes, indeed. They're for the gents out there, or people that like to wear gents clothing. Eco-friendly, high-quality apparel for people with movement in mind. I wear their gear all the time. Buy quality, it will last. And if you can get a little bit of money off, why not? Best way to do that is to go to om.com/#TYLP. Put in promo code Kevin for 15% off. So that's OHMME.com/#TYLP. Use the promo code Kevin for your 15% off the full range of eco activewear for fellas, gents, geezers, people that identify as male, that kind of thing. All right. Thanks so much, as always, for listening. Really appreciate your time. Love doing this, and I'm just honoured that you would take an hour of your day to listen. All right. Catch up with you next week. Take care. Bye.